It's not too often that you'd be talking about a game concerning a lich or a vampiric castle and say that the game is charming or sweet. But in this case, in these card games, that's how I would identify the feeling of playing the games. These are both produced by Sorchi Games, and I'll put the link to this down below. They are quick playing card games that each have rooms, events, items, character cards. The rules themselves are on the summary cards. They're light games, and they are pretty heavily luck driven. That said, they're pretty involving when you get into them, and I'm going to show you some gameplay from the castle version. But before I do that, I'll just go over the basic structure of what you do in the game. You lay out cards to create, either in the case of the Lich game, it is like a dungeon, and, well, actually, it's a tower. It's an ice tower, it's not a dungeon, and a castle in the case of the vampire game. And you travel through each card to try to get to the top and defeat the boss, either the Lich or the vampire. Each card is going to describe what you are encountering and give you an opportunity with your character stats to overcome the situation. And we'll see how that works in the gameplay. In each room, there's also an event that you pull in. The event could be something like this, a frost beetle that you need to overcome, or it could be something else like a trap, or maybe some other type of environmental difficulty. There are items that you can win if you successfully defeat the room or the event, such as a potion here, or some boots that give you a benefit to your dexterity. And in the end, you're attempting to defeat the boss. And in this case, it would be the Lich. What is interesting about the boss situation is that, as you'll see in the second part of the video, you will not know when you're having your boss fight what their response is going to be, because they have a deck of cards and you will pull in a card for each round of the fight, which is going to be some different thing that they will do in response to your attack. So it can be a little challenging in that regard. In the Lich game, not the other one, there are also these lore cards that provide either a benefit or a detriment, and you have options during the course of the game to either take one card or choose not to, depending on whether you want to risk getting a plus or a minus. The reason I'm not showing you too much of what is in the deck is that despite the fact that there's 30 rooms, 30 events, 12 items, and the Lich cards, there is not a ton. Once you sort of get through everything, you will see the same things happening. There's a bunch of different characters you can play that give you different stats, but I don't want to ruin too much of the game. They are light games by showing you, an entire game, for example, because the game itself takes it could take even 10 minutes, depending on how quickly you go through or how quickly you die. And I want to preserve some of that interest and newness to you if you choose to play the games. But I will show you now how the castle plays, and that will give you some sense of the mechanics of the game. So we're just at the beginning of the exploration of this castle, and I thought I would come in here and show you some of the early turns. We're playing Father Vellucci, and his special skill is that he can add 2 sanity at one point in the game. He began with 6 and he's down to 5 already. He's at full health and he has not used any of his 4 luck yet. What we did in the first room, we had vanquished a bloated fairy that attacked us, and we did that. Luckily, we were able to use our strength value of 3 to defeat that, and we then encountered some stairs, and unfortunately, if we had been a little bit smarter, we would have been able to unlock the stairs and go up to the second floor, which we need to get to the top here, but we were unable to do that, so we are destined to continue along on the bottom here. And we still needed to do the event here, and this is when I decided to start filming. So I just pulled in this stair area that we cannot, unfortunately, get out of. We pulled in an electric coil trap. It does 2 damage. It's going to hurt our health directly. We avoid it with strength. From the floor rises a spinning contraption. It's scorching bolts, burning your hair, skin, and flesh. So what we need to do to avoid this is, with our strength value, we are going to need to roll a total of a 9. We get to add a 3 benefit. So that's great. We rolled an 8 plus 3, so we got the 9 plus. We can avoid that trap and the 2 damage that it does, and then move on to the next room on the first level. And we will uncover in this room, it's an armory, an old-fashioned armory packed with rusty, unusable weapons and armor. As you pass through the room, a set of armor suddenly lunges out and grabs you. You hear clockwork ticking inside as the trap starts crushing you. Roll for strength. If you fail, you are mangled for 1 health before breaking free. So again, a strength roll, that's our best attribute. So we're going to add a +3 to this, and we got a 7 plus 3 is a 10. So we did succeed here. So we are not going to lose health, but we need to pull in an event. In addition to that, each room has an event. This is a stone figurine. A figurine with metal spikes underneath it. You can keep it if you want, but it counts as one of your items. Now, it's not telling us what the possible benefit is for this. We may have some narrative text later on where it would help us if we have this. Since we're not carrying anything right now, I'm going to keep it. We have a limit of 3, so I will just add it to our area here to indicate that we have it. And I think I'll go on and show you at least the one more room here. The next room is a scientific laboratory. Before you can even imagine what kind of mad science was conducted in this room, lightning strikes in front of your feet. The hellish machinery has transformed the space into a lightning storm that you now need to navigate through. Roll for dexterity. If you fail, a bolt will burn you for 1 health. Now, unfortunately, our dexterity is only a 1, so we're going to need to roll well here. We got a 7 plus 1 is 8. So unfortunately, we're not able to get out of the way of this electricity. So we're going to take a point off our health. Now, I'll say we could expend a luck to re-roll, but it's too early on. I'm not going to do that right now. So we're going to take that 1 damage, and we will pull in the event. In addition to the scientific laboratory, we find an old wooden cabinet. This old and rustic wooden cabinet is not locked, and when you open it, you find an item. Ooh, pick an item card. That's awesome. So there's a stack of item cards up here, and I'll draw off the top of it, and I got a medicine kit. You find a small waterproof wooden box containing such useful things as bandages, needle and thread, instruments for surgery, and a bottle of laudanum. You can use it anytime you like, and it will give you +1 health and +1 sanity. After use, this card is placed at the bottom of the item pile. That is super awesome. So we will collect that, and now we have 2 of our 3 items that we can carry, and of course we could always drop 1. And I think I will move on to show you the last room on the first floor of this castle. It is a puzzle door. You arrive to a locked door with a puzzle seal. It blocks your progress forward, and the wrong code would probably trigger a trap. Roll for intelligence to try to solve it. Either way, the door will swing open, trap sprung or not. If you fail, the door will spew out a gas that gives you a headache for -1 sanity. So we're going to do an intelligence roll here. Either way, we're going to get to advance to the second level of the castle. Our intelligence is going to give us a +2, and it doesn't matter which dice I use, but I'm going to switch it up. And we roll a 7, +2 is a 9. We just figure out this puzzle door, and once we deal with the event, we can move up. So I'm going to pull in the event card, and that is, it's a swinging pendulum trap. It does 3 damage. That's bad to our health. We have dexterity to avoid it, which is our worst attribute. A whooshing sound is the only warning you get before the iron pendulum cleaves you in twain. That's pretty super bad because, as I said, dexterity is, we only get a +1. We got to get a 9 or better to avoid 3 damage, and we roll. Oh, that's awesome. All right, we got out of the way of that. That's great because Our total health is only 4 at this point, and we're really at the beginning of this journey. So you can see where luck obviously plays a factor here, but we were able to get out of the way of this pendulum trap, thus avoiding the 3 damage. And we don't get an item or anything, but we continue on to move to the next room. All right, we're going to fast forward a little bit. I got only through, I died, basically. I got through an audience hall, the larder. I failed to get an item there, but it was okay. The dinner hall, and then the time machine. And guarding the time machine was this raging werewolf that attacked me ultimately to the death. I couldn't get out of the way of it, and I died. I used up all my luck trying, and ultimately I died. A look at some of the other things I encountered was this vengeful myling and this human abomination. You can see, as I mentioned earlier, why, at least if you like pixel art, it's pretty engaging. So let me explain what I didn't get to do. What I didn't get to do was to encounter the vampire. And the vampire starts with 6 health. And what happens in the course of the fight against the boss to win the game is that on their turn, you're going to flip over one of these cards, and that will determine what its response is to you each turn. So you don't know what's going to happen, what you're going to be having to deal with. And I'll just show you a couple of the cards. Once you turn them over, you shuffle them back into the deck until you either defeat the vampire by inflicting 6 wounds or you die yourself. So in this case, the Countess cuts herself and the gushing blood is shaped into 3 sharp darts. With a swift hand motion, she flings them at you. Roll for dexterity to feint a dodge, getting close enough to successfully strike the vampire for 1 damage. If you fail, the darts instead pierce your poor body for -1 health. So that is one possible response from the vampire, and once you pulled this in a fight, you would shuffle it back in. It could come up again, in other words. And we'll just look at one more. In this particular response, she utters an unholy spell, pulls weird creatures into our dimension, their slithering bodies and hateful screams breaking your mind. You roll for intelligence to withstand the sight of these abominations, and then strike the Countess for 1 damage. If you fail, your mind finally shatters for -2 sanity. So again, I'm not going to show you too much else here, but you get the point in that you just don't know what you're going to be dealing with in that fight, and you have to successfully inflict a total of 6 damage to win the game. So putting this all together, as mentioned, these are quick playing games, and you could probably run through 2 complete games without seeing all of the rooms and the events. You have different characters with different attributes that you can try in the game, and the events will be paired differently with the rooms. That said, it is relatively strongly luck-based, so in that respect, having the different characters it has some significance, but there's not a ton of agency with the game, so you should know that going in. On my end, I really enjoyed playing it because to me, the art is just engaging. It just kind of feels enjoyable in a visual sense, and it is compelling to take it out, quickly play it, and just see if you can possibly get to the top. They're nail biters in that regard, even though they are very luck-based. I think you probably could add in some house rules that would give some complexity or more decisions. For example, the choice to maybe take or rid yourself of an item in exchange for adding a luck value, which would then give you a reroll possibility in the future. That was kind of the most obvious one that stuck out to me. That's not a rule in the games, but it could easily be added on to at least provide like slight decision making and then slight dice manipulation by adding in the luck. But you want to know what you're getting into. They are light games, and quite clearly stated here, it's a 15-minute play time. The art is great. The production quality on the cards is great. And if you're looking for something that is something you can take on the go, or I don't like the term filler game, but that's probably what people would call it, I highly recommend either one of these games.